Hello and welcome to a Friday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I'm joined as always on Fast Friday by Nick Carlisle as we're going to quickly go through the visitors list for FSU's final official visit weekend of the June official visit window, and the calendar goes back to a dead period from June 24th through July 31st, starting on Tuesday at 12:01 a.m. So Florida State sneaking in about 10 official visits for this weekend, Nick, and a little bit lighter load than what we thought there was going to be, but obviously at least three of those players that were scheduled to come this weekend have committed to other programs and decided to cancel their visit, but still an impressive list. You were out there this morning. Who all did you see?
Just going to go through the whole list, or
let's go from top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Okay, we got running back commit Amari Thomas in for his official visit. He was here last week as well, mind you. Xavier Payne, offensive tackle commit, which some debate on whether he's going to be an offensive tackle. I'm sure something we're going to cover in today's show. Heze Kent, 4-star tight end, 4-star offensive tackle / defensive lineman. I'm pretty sure Florida State sees him on the offensive side of the ball. Ben Babanga, offensive tackle Donnell Robinson Jr., FSU legacy Jay Timmons, son of FSU linebacker Lawrence Timmons, scheduled an official visit on the later side of things, but he was here this morning. The big man on campus, or probably the biggest visitor on campus, Xavier Griffin, 4-star linebacker, 4-star commit and athlete Ephraim White, Karan Maycock, another 4-star commitment for Florida State, Luke Francis, who is a offensive tackle, defensive tackle hybrid who got offered at big man camp earlier this week, quickly set up a return official visit once he got offered earlier in the week. And then one that we did not have that we just forgot to add this morning in all the craziness, 3-star defensive lineman / edge rusher Chris Addison, who, if you remember, was on an unofficial visit here in the spring and got offered in the spring as well. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a little bit 10, 11, 12 in that ballpark of official visitors on campus this weekend. Certainly not the biggest this weekend, but definitely a couple of big names that you would for couple of different reasons that Florida State either wants to flip or lock down this weekend.
Yeah, well, let's start with the committed kids, and those are the ones that are committed to Florida State, I should say. And the first one's Amari Thomas. This one's probably the cleanest of the committed kids as far as where Florida State stands. The only visit that I'm aware of that Amari has taken was to South Carolina in late May. So it kind of looks like a two-team race. I know that South Carolina is trying to flip him, but as you said, Amari was on campus last weekend and obviously back this weekend. I don't foresee a change coming in this recruitment as far as Amari is concerned, unless something was impacted by the season during 2025. Whether it was just another bad year or something like that. He seems to have a very good relationship with David Johnson, the running backs coach. And really, listen, he could have gone to a ton of places for official visits and really didn't. Took one, South Carolina. And they'll continue to push, as Florida State will, and kids that are committed to other places. But I feel good about Amari coming into this weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that he was going to visit some other schools as well. Kansas State was another program that was kind of a curious, outlier in terms of schools that he was considering or that were still pushing to get him on campus for an official visit. I think he did schedule something to go to Kansas State at one point, but obviously through our records and records of other recruiting services that visit didn't happen. South Carolina is the big threat here. There's some buzz coming out of his official visit that they made a serious push for him. I'm not so quick to believe that. I mean, I'm sure they did improve their chances with him, but I still feel pretty comfortable about where Amari Thomas sits. And I think he's got a great relationship with Yak. And, he's been back on campus multiple times since his commitment in January. So I still feel pretty good about this one. I'm not overly concerned, but that doesn't mean that South Carolina is going to stop pushing, as you mentioned.
No, I mean, listen, this is their job to continue to recruit despite a kid being committed. I know someone put on our board that they wish adults would take the lead from these teenagers when a kid commits and other coaches quit calling. We know that's not going to happen. It's not how the business works. As upset as fans get at other teams recruiting kids committed to Florida State, we would be mad at the Florida State coaches if they did not continue to recruit kids that were committed to other schools. So that's just not the way it works. Listen, I think if the kid was interested in going somewhere, there would have been a lot more noise about it at this point. The fact that he's back on campus for a second week in a row kind of shows you, listen, anything can happen. We know that, but I feel much better about Amari's commitment than I do the next two guys we're going to talk about. The one I think is on flip watch for sure is linebacker commit Kyron Maycock, who has been committed to Florida State since February. But listen, there's been a lot of smoke about Kyron. I think Alabama is probably the one that's, most likely to flip him if he does flip. But obviously, a very important weekend for Florida State when it comes to Kyron Maycock, and probably the best linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the state of Florida, and obviously one of the best recruits committed to Florida State right now. So, listen, I think this was highly important. He is a guy that tremendous potential at the college level, and it looks like it's Florida State, Alabama, and then possibly Florida and Syracuse behind those two. But big weekend for Florida State when it comes to Kyron Maycock.
Yeah, we didn't do the roundtable questions this week because we've been running around with our chickens with their head cuts off with all the midweek officials and all of that. But if there was a visit that was really important this weekend that I would highlight, I think this is it. Of course, you want to talk about Xavier Griffin being a prospect that they absolutely want, and that's certainly an important visit as well. But in terms of retaining the talent you have, this guy's dynamic. This guy's extremely athletic. He can play multiple positions, whether that be safety and linebacker. I was a huge fan of this take when he committed in, I think, was it February? That might have been a February or March take.
Late February.
Huge fan. And that was a big win at the time. If you're Florida State, you need to do everything possible that you can in order to lock him down this weekend, remind him why he committed in the first place. Really just roll out the red carpet and do what needs to be done to lock down what I consider to be one of the more dynamic defensive players in the state of Florida, not to mention the entire 2026 class. It is imperative that you have a good weekend with Kyron Maycock this weekend, because I do think that the allures of specifically SEC team is very real. And let's be honest, like the development in Alabama is really good too. So
that and the fact that he's come out and is going to make a final commitment announcement on July 7th. I mean,
you can't feel too rosy about that, but who knows? We could, as we talked about a couple of times when we discussed on the show, that could mean everything, or it could just be a kid making a move for attention. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but you know what I mean.
Maybe a move for leverage.
That too.
Leverage, because these kids are negotiating contracts in terms of employment. I don't feel good about it, but we'll see what happens. Again, they have a good chance to solidify that this weekend, and we'll see how that goes down. Another kid that's probably on flip watch, but listen, Xavier Payne, the offensive tackle who has been committed to Florida State since last December. The first offensive line commitment that Herb Hand got when he arrived on campus. This one's pretty. Listen, he came out of his this week visit to Colorado. Famously said, "Don't count them out of my recruitment" in regards to the Buffaloes. I try not to read too much into this because I've read tons of articles with kids visiting other places, and they react to their visits to those places just like they do to Florida State. I've not had one kid tell us in the 4 weeks we've been doing this for this year that they had a bad visit. I haven't read where a kid that visited another school had a bad visit. So could this be a visit high that Xavier Payne is feeling, which most prospects do? And I can go back to DQ Forpa, who we thought could commit 2 weeks ago, and now it looks like North Carolina's involved and Penn State's involved and Michigan's involved. So we'll see how that goes. But going back to Xavier, the one thing that stood out to me was that Colorado specifically is recruiting him as an offensive tackle and has not mentioned the word guard to him. It certainly sounds like in his comments to Rivals post Colorado, and since he is committed to Florida State, I'm going to jump out on a limb and say he was referencing Florida State when he talked about other teams wanting him to play interior offensive line. Now, that may be where he is best suited, and I think probably from a lateral movement standpoint, they're right, because my one concern about Xavier when I watch his high school tape is his ability to pass block laterally at the college and move laterally at the college level, especially particularly the P4 level. So Florida State may be right in its evaluation and that he is ultimately going to be a guard in college, but just based off what he said and about his official visit to Colorado, it certainly seems that Colorado has made some inroads here and possibly might. So I think Xavier is on flip watch, because you could tell in that interview he did after that visit that tackles what he sees himself at 6'7" and 330 pounds. He doesn't see himself as a guard. Colorado made a huge selling point of that they know he wants to play tackle. So we'll see how it goes. Listen, he's been committed for a long time. He's visited Arkansas, Syracuse, Penn State, and Colorado. He's had plenty of opportunities to flip if that's what he wants to do. He has not done that, but certainly a kid, just because of what he said coming off his visit, kind of on alert, right? Kind of like we were for Forkpaw to commit to Florida State because of what he said coming off that visit. Moments after it ended, this was kind of the way whoever talked to Payne for Rivals caught him just as he was coming off that visit. So you got to take the official visit high into account that all these kids get. We thought Devin Carter might flip, and now he goes to Auburn. It's back home. So we see this kind of thing all the time. But anyway, so I think Payne I think they got to keep an eye on this. Listen, I'm not sure if their plan is to play him at guard. You brought in two guys early through the portal that are freshmen that are probably guards. We think Ionata is a guard. Do you need to bring in a fourth guard? That's essentially four underclassmen guards in this spring portal / December 2026 or December 2025 recruiting class. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I think the whole tackle versus versus guard thing. I mean, I saw him in person in Miami, and I kind of had the same takeaways that what you saw on film is that he's going to struggle laterally and with quicker defensive defensive ends on the edge. I wonder if he's taken his official visit to Penn State, because that was the team that was pinged to me, that would relate to me if they got serious about Payne, that Florida State could be in trouble with. Let me see here. Well, because we might be victim to the old Rivals logging.
Yeah, I can only go by what's reported.
Yeah, let me see here. I'm seeing Syracuse and Colorado on one site, and then just Florida State on another site. Yeah. So, if that's the case, I feel a little bit better about Florida State hanging on to Payne, but I kind of have been on the mindset for the past few months that I have not felt comfortable about his recruitment, because and it's well within his right, obviously, to continue going throughout his process, but just some of the things that I've been hearing didn't make me feel overly confident that he was going to stick. And who knows, he may actually end up sticking, but who knows if his comments coming out of the Colorado visit were indicatory of where he might be leaning, or maybe a heads up to Florida State, like, hey, they're going to let me play tackle over here. Let me play tackle at Florida State. We can obviously, there's a little bit of reading the tea leaves that goes on with what we do here. But if he actually didn't make it to his official visit to Penn State, I feel a lot better about them holding on to Payne. So, and it's looking like he didn't go on that visit. So That's interesting. So.
Yeah, well, listen, all I know, the easy solution to that is Florida State needs to tell him he's playing tackle. Should have been telling him he's going to play tackle. Then when he gets here and can't play tackle, you tell him, hey, you want to play football here? You got to move inside, but recruit him at what he wants to be recruited at. And then this would not be open for, you can say, hey, at least you're being forthright with him, all that. But recruiting is a sales job. Recruit him at the position he wants to be recruited at. That's one of the reasons they're probably not going to get Hezzy Kent, is because rivals and the people that cover the program have asked Hezzy, this program, have talked to Hezzy about being recruited as offensive tackle. And on his last unofficial visit that I talked to him on this spring, he made it very clear that he wants to be recruited as a tight end, not an offensive tackle. Rivals is the only site that has him listed as an offensive tackle prospect. And that will cause, listen, if they don't, Hezzy Kent wants to be recruited as a tight end. You can make him see the light once he gets to campus. But if Florida, Miami, and Texas are recruiting Hezzy Kent as a tight end, and Florida State, I believe they're recruiting him as a tight end. But I know he was asked by someone that covers Florida State when he was here about the potential of playing offensive tackle, and he cleared it up real quick that that's not how he sees himself. So you got to hope. Now, I think that Florida State is probably behind. At one time it was Miami and Florida. Then he came off the Texas visit again. No, I haven't heard a kid say a bad word about an official visit this summer. He was high on Texas. So listen, Florida State gets the last chance with Hezzy. Sign him as a tight end. Prove to him once he gets here that he can be a all-pro offensive tackle at the next level if he'll develop. But I think they got some work to do on this particular official visit in order to close the gap between. Thank you, Tate. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the super sticker, the $20. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Since Tay's got a good question, and just your thoughts on Hezzy before we take Tay's question.
I think Florida State has some work to do this weekend. I think that Florida is in the lead right now for Hezzy. I do believe that he is one of those tight ends that they would take without question. It's down between him and Xavier Tiller, I think, in terms of the two guys that they like the most at that position. I asked me like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I would have said, oh, it's a good sign that Florida State is getting his last official visit, but that clearly has been a narrative that's been dispelled throughout the last 3 or 4 weeks in terms of how important that is. But I think Florida State sees him as a unique body type, something that he can really add to their room, something that they don't really have behind Marquiston Douglas. And I think he actually has a couple of more athletic qualities than Marquiston does in terms of what he's able to do on the football field. But I do think that there are other schools in the lead right now for Hezzy, and Florida State has some work to do this weekend. Let's see if they can pull it out, or at least improve their standing.
Yeah, and hopefully that kid will realize at some point in his college career that he's 6'5", 260. He might be 6'5", 320 and playing the NFL in 4 or 5 years. All right, so Tay, your question is, do we believe that acquiring, and I love your use of the word acquiring in today's modern college football world, quarterback Jaden O'Neal will help us get to another talented wide receiver? Listen, my quick answer, and I'll let Nick answer as well. My quick answer is yes. I think quarterbacks tend to be the spokesperson of any one signing class. He is a West Coast guy that moved to Oklahoma after his commitment. Will he have known a Madden Williams or who was the other kid from the West Coast, his teammate? What's that?
Daniel Odom.
Do those guys know each other from the 7-on-7 circuit in California? Could he help you with a guy like that? The short answer is yes, he could. I think anytime people, offensive skill players, know who they're going to be getting thrown the ball to, I do think it helps. So, yes, I do think it could help Florida State land another talented receiver, someone that Jaden has either crossed on the recruiting trail, met at 11 on what is that? Elite? Was he at Elite 11?
He wasn't at Elite 11 this year, but I think he was at Elite 11 last year.
So certainly, recruiting is a small world and football is a small world. So I could certainly see that. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it doesn't just help with guys that are uncommitted. I think this also helps with guys that are committed to other programs, like a Devin Carter, who is getting a lot of buzz right now in terms of, what he said on his official visit to Auburn and versus what he said about Florida State and whether or not Florida State is truly a program that can get him back in the class. I think not specifically for wide receivers, but I just think for momentum across the entire class, having your quarterback, having your signal caller, knowing who you're going to be blocking for, knowing who who's going to hand you off the football in terms of running backs in the backfield. I think when you have a quarterback that can kind of steer and direct the class, I think that absolutely helps your recruiting momentum because, I mean, the quarterback is more than just a single caller and a captain on the football field. It also happens to be in the recruiting class as well. Take a look at, kind of the leader that Luke Kromenhoek was as the leader of that 2024 class. I mean, he was instrumental in, I don't want to give him too much credit and say closing on those recruitment, but, he was the type of guy that showed up to Charles Lester's commitment. He was the type of guy that showed up to KJ Bolden at the time's commitment. Like, having a guy that can bring the class together is incredibly crucial. And I think that Florida State, and I don't mean this in any disrespect to Tramel Jones last year, they didn't have that guy. They didn't have that guy that could be the rallier of the class. And whether that guy would be Jaden O'Neal, assuming that Florida State does complete the flip like we're all expecting them to, Jaden O'Neal has the opportunity to come and be that guy and be that voice and be the guy that can rally around and start recruiting around and bringing in a really good class for Florida State. So it helps more than just with the wide receivers is my answer, but it certainly helps when you know who's going to be throwing you the football in terms of specifically the receivers.
And they got to have if they get a commitment. And here's the thing: I'm going to say. I don't mean it to be negative, but we saw Florida State go into last season with a quarterback committed before it started the 2024 season. 2024 season goes terribly. They lose that commitment to Florida, which they might have lost it anyway, particularly when it came out that Florida State. I think they would have lost if they had signed the kid from
Bishop Farrell. Carter Smith.
No, I'm talking about the kid that ended up at Florida.
Tramel Jones.
Listen, I think that they lost that as much for bringing in the rumor got out that they were going to bring in a portal quarterback as much as the season did with Tramel. We'll see how that affects. Yes, the short answer is having a quarterback in your class certainly helps, and we'll see what happens with the Jaden O'Neal. I know there are a lot of people that are putting out future cast and crystal balls about.
I'm the guy who's putting out future casts
about, but because he's decommitted from Oklahoma. My understanding is he's still taking as a visit to Oklahoma this weekend. So if that is the case, they'll have a chance in the next 48 hours to right that ship and see where it goes. But he did release a statement that he was decommitting, so maybe he has changed his mind about that. But yeah, listen, I think Jaden helps anytime you have a quarterback, especially a kid that is well known as Jaden O'Neal. It would only help your class. Listen, we'll see. I know there are a bunch of people putting future casts and crystal balls in for Devin Carter. I don't know how you read that, what he said after Auburn and do that, but people are, and they may know more than I do. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so listen, I think there will be a rush of commitments to Florida State and everywhere else within the next 10 to 12 days as we get into the July 4th weekend. And we usually see recruiting fireworks around July 4th. So we'll see what happens there. Two offensive linemen. We're not going to spend a ton of time on them. Ben Mabinga from Buford, Georgia, 4-star tight end, has visited Georgia Tech, Arkansas, and NC State. And his recruiting official visit timeline reads just like every other recruit's timeline. He has gone to one place, loved it, gone to another next place, loved it just as much, and gone to the third place and loved it just as much. If you read in my research of Mabinga this weekend, over the course of this week, NC State is the team that's trending in the right direction. Is it a coincidence that he was visiting there last weekend? No, it's what happens. These kids get on these official visit highs, but listen, I think that it would be great if Florida State could walk out with the commitment of Ben Mabinga or Donnell Robinson, the 3-star offensive lineman from Lexington, Mississippi, Holmes County High School, who's down to Ole Miss, Baylor, and LSU. Listen, no commitment predictions for either kid. I know that Mabinga is going to announce on July 7th. I'm not sure about Donnell Robinson, but I like Florida State's chances here with both of them. I don't think that anyone leads in any of these three, any of these two guys' recruitments. I think Ole Miss is out for Robinson. It's down to Baylor, LSU, and Florida State, and clearly they're in the top 4 from Mabinga. And listen, I know the last visit doesn't mean as much as it used to on the old calendar because you get that last visit in January or December right before National Signing Day. That usually carries the day. Now kids got 4 or 5 months to reevaluate all his decisions. But I like their chances of I don't know that they want to take both on the same weekend, but I think they have as good an opportunity to land either of these two kids, Ben Mabinga and Donnell Robinson, as any of the schools that are recruiting them right now.
Yeah, these are relatively wide open recruitments, and especially with Mabinga. I feel like he's a target that may have flown under the radar a little bit in terms of getting a lot of attention. But I think he's certainly. We talk every single week about a bus guy, some guy that gets off the bus that looks really nasty. I think if Mabinga puts on some more muscle and some weight, that he could be that guy. I mean, he's a tall human being, and he plays both sides of the football from what I understand. I mean, Florida State is recruiting him on the offensive side of the ball. I know he plays on the defensive side of the ball, so maybe that's something that weighs into the decision as well. But yeah, both guys, I think that these are relatively wide open recruitments that Florida State certainly has the capacity to win. It's a matter of whether or not they consider both of them a take. At this point, I think there are some guys that they do like more than those guys at this point that are still available, maybe like an Aaron Thomas. And of course, obviously, Xavier Payne, as we talked about earlier, who wants to be an offensive tackle. Does he stay at offensive tackle? Is that maybe a meeting in the middle point with that recruitment where he then sticks at tackle? So but definitely a couple of winnable recruitments, and not much else beside that.
To switch gears real quickly, did you put any kind of post about a linebacker named Ashton Dawson on the board?
I did not. Why is that?
I just got a text message from the Arkansas site. Hey Pat, this is Kyle. I was doing some digging. Apparently we have run a report on Ashton at some point. And
Ashton Dawson.
Yeah, he just wanted me to know that Ashton had just committed to Arkansas, but he was not a linebacker that was on Florida State's radar, so that does not surprise me. But I thought maybe he sent this to the wrong person, meaning he sent it to you instead of me, and I did not know that you had written something about it.
I have not heard of this kid before
This
today.
must be back on the this must be way back when, because I don't remember the kid's
I'm looking
name.
at his profile right now, and I am only seeing a verbal commitment and an offer from Arkansas.
Yeah.
So whether I don't know if that's I don't know if we're getting Rivals databased again, or if this is a legitimate prospect that maybe we missed out on. But no, it doesn't ring a bell to me. But congratulations, Ashton, on your commitment to the Razorbacks, I guess. Then
he said he read something that we had written, so I guess we at one point we did mention the kid. But
I'm not even seeing a story.
Yeah, I couldn't find it
on our side of things. Hold
on. It might have been a tweet he saw. It could have been a tweet. But anyway, yeah. So Ashton Dawson, who was not on Florida State.
Oh, okay. I just searched in the forums. Ashton Dawson was that fullback defensive tackle prospect, that hybrid prospect that we reported about a couple of weeks ago, which was a weird offer. To be frank with you, so they did offer him a little bit of a weird one. But obviously, if Arkansas saw him purely as a defensive tackle prospect, I know Florida State was recruiting him as more of like a fullback type of gadget type of guy. So that would make sense. So.
All right, so let's move back to this weekend. But I do appreciate the update.
Oh, that was a rabbit trail, wasn't it?
Yeah, I do appreciate the in-time update. But I was like, I don't remember watching anything, writing anything about Ashton Dawson. All right, so I opined a lot on this kid last week, so I'm just going to leave it really short. Xavier Griffin, the Gainesville, Georgia edge player, down between Florida State, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, among others. Listen, I said this last week, and I think Florida State's behind Texas and Alabama in this recruitment. I think there's probably a significant gap. I do know from talking with people at his high school that he does have a affinity for Mike Norvell, that he truly likes Mike, respects Mike, values what he has experienced with Mike during the recruiting process. So, yes, I think they've got a puncher's chance because of the relationship and the way Xavier Griffin feels about Mike. They got some work to do, but they do get the last visit before his decision. And I don't think he has actually set a specific date for a decision. I do think we'll probably learn before his senior season starts who he's going to commit to. But I think they've got a chance.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, if there was ever a time for Mike Norvell to pull one out of the hat and win a recruitment that he probably shouldn't win, or isn't expected to win, this is probably that one. This is a guy that I think we both can agree is an SEC lean right now. But you talked about it, that affinity for Mike Norvell is very real. It's not manufactured. It's not, just a talking point. Like, the kid genuinely respects Mike and, the way that he's run his program. And he's been a guy that Mike has recruited for a couple of years now. So, they were there early with Xavier too. This is one that I don't imagine we'll get answers to in the immediate in anytime soon, but would it shock me if Mike pulled off a masterclass? No. I think they definitely have as you described, a punching chance in this one. But it is with that being said, it is also hard to ignore the allure of the SEC.
Yep. All right. And a couple of guys that, we know Ephraim White's coming in town. He's been committed to Florida State since he was a sophomore. Listen, I've read where people expect him to be in this class, don't expect him to be in this class, don't know where he's receiver or DB. I think he's probably a DB, to be honest with you. Rivals 200 guy, Rivals 250 guy, I should say. Only other visit that I'm aware of is NC State. I think as long as Florida State wants him, they've got it.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's a matter of where he fits into this class's plans. He was an early take, and he hasn't really developed, I think, to what and I don't want to put words in obviously anybody's mouth, but I think he hasn't developed at the rate that maybe they were hoping to as a projection when they first took him a couple of years ago. You kind of have a question mark about where exactly he fits in. I disagree with you. I think he's more of a wide receiver than he is a cornerback. Maybe he may be better at cornerback, but I think they see him at wide receiver above all else. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly where he fits into this class, because he's kind of, I don't want to say he's an outlier, but he's kind of been in the class so long that you kind of forget about him in terms of what they expect out of him and what they're looking to get out of him. And who knows if that's changed when Gus came into the role earlier this year.
Yep. And then quickly, the last two kids on campus, Lawrence Timmons, who is Lawrence Timmons, I guess, senior's son. I think they call him Jay.
He's Jay.
But he is a junior. He's Lawrence Timmons Jr. Goes by the name Jay. Been verbally committed to Indiana since April. Came into Florida State for an unofficial visit during the camp. Got offered during that camp. And I think Florida State's, as long as they're willing to take him, I think they'll flip him.
Yep, agree. We can't put in future casts for flips, but if I could, I would. He was one of the more impressive guys at the elite camp when I saw him, or I think that was on like June 1st, June 2nd. He had a really good camp against some pretty good wide receiver competition. So I think this is a guy that as Florida State fans see a little bit more of, they'll be excited as a take, assuming that they close the deal, which I think they should.
Yeah, and then it looks like they may have found a diamond in the rough and defensive tackle prospect Luke Francis from Coral Gables via the UK. I guess he's been in the United States playing football for the last 2 years. Camped at Florida State earlier this week, earned an offer. He's also got offers depending on which recruiting service you're investigating. Syracuse and Georgia State. Kid's impressive physically. I've seen some film on him, seen some pictures of him. He's a big kid, listed at 6'4", 335. I'm not sure he's 335 anymore. But anyway, so I've always said I don't get overly concerned when tackles and defensive tackles and offensive linemen you haven't got all your needs filled for any one cycle going into the season, because I do think you can find kids late. Big kids develop physically later than smaller kids, meaning offensive linemen and defensive linemen continue to grow into their bodies, continue to learn how to function in those bodies, and get strong enough to be competitive in those frames. So listen, this is a kid that it may benefit Florida State down the line. They've quickly turned this around and brought him back to campus for an official visit. So we'll see where it goes with Luke Francis.
Yeah, I'm actually curious because maybe I'm thinking of another kid that they've identified at these big man camps, because there's been a couple, but maybe he's also on the offensive side of the ball. I know that we have him listed as defensive tackle, and some other recruiting services has him as a defensive tackle, but I wonder who offered him. It looks like it was Odell. Okay, so maybe he is on the defensive side of the ball. But either way, I mean, anytime that you can find a guy at your camp that you really like, bring him in on an official visit. You must feel a certain way about him. We've seen it happen with guys in the past. I mean, you take a look at like a Daniel Pierre-Louis last cycle. He was identified at a camp and they brought him in, and they held his commitment for a while before he ended up flipping to Florida. So obviously, I have you looked at his film a little bit, Pat, or have you just seen pictures?
Just a tiny bit. Just enough.
So I mean, look, obviously they saw enough in him to give him an offer and bring him back on an official visit as soon as possible. So they must feel really, really good about him. And certainly, I say this with a lot of prospects.
I'm watching him dunk a basketball right now.
Oh, so he's really athletic, is what you're telling me.
Well, I mean, he's 6'5", so he should be able to dunk a basketball, but he's also 330 pounds, and he gets up fairly.
I mean, that's a lot to get up. That's a lot of power to get up there.
Fairly easily. So, and he's a big kid. I'm looking at that. I think they had him. Looks like he went to a Florida camp and weighed in at 342, 6'5", 342. That was June 17th. He's definitely working out at defensive tackle in the Florida camp. I'm watching film of that right now. But he is a big, long kid who is athletic for his size. So makes you want. I'd love to get his backstory because it's hard to believe that a kid, as I'm sitting here watching this, that big, does not have more than 2 FBS offers. But again, he's from England. Don't know the background. Just found out about him this week. So we will try to get that to you when we can. But yeah, so interesting. Big kid. We'll see what happens with him.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, of course, I think that wraps it up. Did I miss anybody?
There's just the one that I added afterwards with Chris Addison. Unless we already talk about him. I can't remember. Either way, I don't.
We have not.
I don't know how. I don't know where he sits on Florida State's board. He was an offer in the spring when he came on an unofficial visit. And to be quite frank with you, this is the first time that we've seen his name pop up in anything meaningful concerning his recruitment with Florida State until literally last night, early this morning. So I don't know where he sits on the board for them. But similar to how I feel about adding defensive tackle and offensive tackle prospects in the last couple of weeks, I mean, always expand your offensive and defensive line board when you can. You can never have enough.
Tulane, Michigan State, UCLA, and Mississippi State were his other official visits.
Yeah, I think Florida State took the spot of the Tulane visit because I think
so he's 6'5", 235, ranked as the 13th best overall prospect in the state of Louisiana and 40th best edge defender, whatever that means. We just need to be defensive ends. Anyway, So good looking group of kids in this weekend. As I said when we started the show, this will wrap up official visit weekends for June. The recruiting calendar, they can have kids on campus as late as 11:59 on Monday night, but after that, they cannot have kids back on campus till August 1st. So it's been a fast and furious month. Florida State got a little bit of momentum earlier this week with the 3 commitments. And obviously some good things going as we think that they may get a flip of Jaden O'Neal. There are some other people that think they're going to flip Devin Carter out there. So, and then, of course, a host of players will have official visits announcements, commitment announcements starting basically at the end of this recruiting cycle. Starting the 1st of July, you'll start to see a lot of kids jump on board at Florida State and other places. We'll be back on Sunday.
Hold on. Something that I just saw on my Twitter feed, and this is insane. We don't have to talk about this, but I just want to let you know. Wisconsin is suing Miami over the tampering of Xavier Lucas, according to Rob Seninger. Did you see that before? I just saw that now, and I almost cursed on air. My gosh.
I just haven't had a time to digest it and see what it's all about. And see
I want to read this immediately.
Yeah, listen, I think if the kid sues Wisconsin back for whatever, didn't allow him in the portal, wouldn't file his paperwork, whatever the case is.
Popcorn.
I think at the end of the day, this will end up being resolved outside the courts. But yeah, interesting.
Don't tell me that. I want popcorn. I want drama. I want blood in the water. Slam.
There's always blood in the water when it comes to football. Wow. You always, but yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I have not had a chance to read that article. It got released about an hour ago. But I think at the end of the day, I think that it's a bad. Listen, is that what we're going to do now? Every university is going to sue. I mean, it's another reason they got to get this shit under control. I mean, they got to have a way to have this legislated and monitored and implemented, and because this will be it's just like the first kid that committed in June, however how many years ago, first kid did it, then now all of a sudden it's become common. The commonality in recruiting is for everybody to commit before their senior year. So is this where we're going? Schools are going to sue other schools. It's not I remember being told, and I didn't believe it, but somebody was going to transfer somewhere or did transfer somewhere, and apparently the player A transferred, signed with school 1, transferred to school 2. When he transferred to school 2, school 1 called school 2 and asked for his down payment back. I don't know whether that happened or not. It's what I've been told. I can't believe that would happen. I heard it from somebody that's typically credible. But anyway, so it'll be interesting to follow that Wisconsin-Miami thing and see where it goes. All right, so we'll be back. We'll be out at the Moore Center on Sunday trying to get post-visit interviews from these guys. Hopefully we'll have a commitment or two to announce, or a reaffirmed commitment in the case of Amari Thomas and Kayron Maycock and Xavier Payne. But we will have some breaking news on Sunday in some form or fashion, whether it's just kids doing the regular, hey, this is what I thought of my visit, this is what I learned, or maybe more news than that. Of course, we'll have our all of the follow-up coverage on Monday and Sunday and Monday in written form. We'll probably have a Seminole Sidelines on Monday afternoon just to recap the weekend briefly, and hopefully maybe some other news comes out this weekend, whether it's kids that are visiting other places that are considering FSU, making decisions on narrowing down their list of potential college homes. But we're to the end of it, Nick. We survived. If we can make it through a Sunday, we have survived what's been a crazy June on multiple fronts.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. It's been, I don't know.
It just feels like almost to the end.
We are almost to the end. I don't know. I don't think anything can replace the panic and insanity that was recruiting during the football season last year. And basically when recruits and commitments were dropping like flies left and right, that was stressful. But I don't know if I've the past this June and this spring with everybody that they were bringing in, and with this staff getting acquainted, and how many kids that they were bringing in, man, this was hectic. This was a hectic cycle that obviously isn't going to end yet. But you kind of compartmentalize and cut up. When these official visits are done, that's when everything is done and dusted. But
it's going to be interesting to see if they can put a good start to the season together, how many kids they can get in here on official visits during the season.
Well, I mean, I've said it before, and I think, and I'm going to hold to it. I think what they have done this year, even though maybe the quality of prospect last year was greater with what they had at this time last season, I think that they've done a better job as a recruiting staff this season, being able to get guys committed, being able to fill the board up nicely, and being able to actually run a recruiting operation. So I hope for their sake, for everybody on the staff, that they do have a good start to the season and they can build some momentum. And, maybe we could start talking about top 10 classes with Florida State again.
They win enough games, they'll be back in the top 10 discussion. There's no doubt about that. That's going to be fun to see what happens. All right, so we hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday, either sometime between 12 and 3, depends on how the schedule works out. But we'll be back sometime, probably at 3 o'clock. But just sign up for notifications for Osceola YouTube while you're here. That way you know. But we'll be back. If you want to look at all our content from this past week, a lot of our posts, because they had kids there during the middle of the week, we still have a lot of post official visit coverage at the Osceola.com, and we also have our preview of the written preview of what we just talked about at the Osceola.com. So everyone have a great Friday. Nick, I will see you at the Moore Center on Sunday morning, and we will see this June recruiting cycle out and move on forward from there. All right,
Bring your bourbon.
I will. I will. All right, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on the Osceola Seminole Sidelines.